Hi everyone, in this video I want to talk about polynomial long division. Here's the problem that we're going to work on, and to make sure that we don't take ourselves too seriously, let's think about our fun question throughout the video. What is the best piece of advice a family member has given to you? Before we dive in, I always want to talk about where does this fall in the grand scheme of all of the topics on the ACT. This is polynomial functions. We're not talking about graphs, but polynomials would be long division. Back to our problem. Okay, so when you look at this, man, it looks pretty intimidating. I think it's worth comparing this to something we did in grade school. So if you would have done, say, long division in grade school, you would have thought, what, let's say 2 into 369. How many times does 2 go into 3 is what you would have asked yourself first. So that would be 1. Then you multiply the 1 by the 2 and you subtract off that product. We're going to be using a very similar process. So 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract that from the 3, get 1. Then remember, you have to pull this 6 down. 2 does not go into 1, but it does go into 16, so you have 8 times 2 is 16. Okay, we're going to subtract off 16 this time. We get a 0, bring down the 9. Now 2 into 9 is 4. But then remember, once we kind of get to the end of the line here, we could have a remainder. In this case, we do. Grade school, you would have said R1, but what you might remember is that that also equals 184, and you take that 1 over this 2. So it's 184 and a half, or 184.5. Okay. The process for long division here with polynomials is similar, where you set it up x plus 2 into 4x cubed minus. Now, here's the thing that we have to note. If you ever have a jump right here, there is no x squared term, and so what we need to do is create a placeholder for that lane, so to speak. You see, these are all, this is the hundreds lane, the tens lane, the ones lane. We need to make sure everything is very organized, otherwise it'll be kind of hard to tell what the final answer is. We have a 0x squared minus 4x plus 13. Okay, now the kicker for this is there are 2 terms here and then 4 terms here. So how am I going to figure out how to start? Well, you always do the first term into the first term. Okay, so how many times does x go into 4x cubed? And then you ask yourself, all right, x times what is 4x cubed? I recommend that if students struggle with this, that they actually write that out. Isn't that 4 and then 2 x's, right? So we are going to do 4x squared. But notice we want everything to be organized. So I'm putting the x squared term on top of the other x squared term, in that lane. Now, remember here, once we had this 1, we subtract off the 1 times 2. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to subtract whatever this times the divisor is. So we have a 4x cubed plus, and then that's 8x squared. What I recommend, I like to change colors here. I recommend distributing this negative in so that we don't mess up our signs. Let's do minus, minus. And that would be 0 minus 8. We get negative 8x squared. Bring this down, minus 4x. How many times now? Remember, first term into first term. How many times does x go into negative 8x squared? That would be, I need a negative 8, and then I need 1x, because x times negative 8x is negative 8x squared. remember, next is subtraction. It's like we're right here, basically. We get negative 8x squared minus 16x. I need to distribute my negative and change all of the signs. And then we have, you basically thinking of those canceling. We got 12x here, bring the 13 down. So then what's left here is, remember, first term into first term, the 12. I'm going to subtract off. I'm basically right here. And we need a 12x plus 24 for that bit. Distribute my negative. Then we have a remainder. Man, what are we going to do with that? How are we going to have a remainder for something like this? Well, remember how the other one, it was just 1/2 was the remainder, right? Because it's 0.5. This, you're just going to write plus negative 11 over that divisor, the x plus 2, to write our final answer. So remember, our final answer is all the way up at the top. What I like to do here to kind of finish off is maybe start color coding some things. So to get this 4x squared, with the 4x squared, that involves this line. The negative 8x involved this line here. And then that 12 was the last one. So it really pays to be organized for problems like these, and also relate it back to what you would have learned in grade school. Moving on to the practice problem. Here we have this one. Oh, don't look at the answer. So we have 12x squared minus 19x plus 13 divided by x minus 1. Just as a tip, there is no jump right here. There's no sort of placeholder that you would need. Why don't you pause the video if you don't want to see the answer yet? When all is said and done, this is the answer that you should be getting. And before we part, I always want to leave you with a quote for some motivation. It takes a little motivation to get through problems like this. I love this one. I've seen it on a poster in our school. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. That's from Henry Ford. If you'd like to keep up with new videos, I'd really appreciate if you could click subscribe. And the fun question, we would love to see your answers in the comments. Have a great day.